Clear Choice Stakeholder meeting, and we are recording so that everyone's aware. And we just had kind of a basic agenda, but things have been happening quickly as they always do. So we'll make some modification to that. The notice mentioned comments received from the Bureau, and I did receive 2. I wasn't able to post them. They came in kind of last minute. So I'll talk through them kind of verbally, and then we'll follow up and post to the website so that everyone has that. And as soon as Brittany gets a chance, she will post the chart of the Clear Choice plans, and really haven't changed that much from what got sent out. There was one correction that I needed to make, but I'll wait until that pops up to speak specifically to that. One thing I did want to mention in a lot of the questions and discussions that I've been having and looking through things is to remind everyone that it's a good idea to refer to, there's 2 specific regulations that we're dealing with here. Rule 851 is the Clear Choice Design regulation, and that has some specifics, guidelines for the Clear Choice. And then there's also Rule 856, which discusses the process for the merged market. So that does have additional, I feel as though with Clear Choice in the merged market that we have really a combined discussion at this point. So those are good references. When you have questions come up, look through that. And if you don't find guidance there, as I mentioned, and I think we talked about in the last, or perhaps it was the merged market discussion, so not everyone was privy to that, but the Bureau intends to put out an FAQ to keep everyone on the same page with the answers that we're putting out there for Clear Choice and the merged market, and that will be posted to the Bureau website because certainly things change and we get more information as we go through the process. We are still waiting on some more information before we issue our bulletin that comes out every year to specify guidelines for what we expect in the filings for the affordable care plans and obviously for the Clear Choice. So we have been talking with the state marketplace because we need to obviously coordinate a little different than we did last year where it was a dual filing. We're hoping that we can push filings, the initial due date for filings, perhaps the beginning of July rather than mid-June that we've done in the past, in order to meet more of a CMS timeframe, and then perhaps push the final approvals off to, I'm kind of speaking out here without formalizing anything, but, it could be perhaps mid-September, beginning October, rather than the August 20th-ish that was in prior years. So just to kind of give you a heads up, because we're not able to finalize, I know everyone's anxious to be able to work around that. And we are still waiting, for more information on the 1332 application, but that is definitely in the process at this point. So, Brittany, do you want to post that, or share the chart, and we'll just talk to that briefly?
Yep.
Thanks.
All right, can you see that?
Yes, I had to move some things out of my way so I could see it. Okay. Is there a way we can make it a little bigger, Brittany? Like do a zoom? I know it's huge, so it's kind of hard to, without losing some of the detail. Okay, that's probably good. Yeah, and if we need to move over. So I did want to mention the one that got sent out had a missing P or a incorrect indicator. The bronze 9,100 deductible plan. The specialist should be the $80 before deductible, and it wasn't highlighted previously. So that's highlighted now. But really that's the only change. And we did leave the blue highlighting to indicate that those were the newer plans, but that was in there when it was sent out to the stakeholder group. So these currently are the suggested plans, and we've had some questions come up about, you know, kind of understanding the merge. You know, these are plans that will be available to individual and small group. They do not have to be actively marketed to both of those markets, but they will be available. So the wording in the regulation is must offer the same plan to individual and small group. We're not in favor, not giving guidance that, so naming conventions has come up as one of the questions. They cannot be named individual plan because they are in effect available to both individual and small group. So that's not part of the naming convention. Let's see if I can bring up a few of the other questions that I can answer while we have. Sorry, I've got too many things open and trying to navigate through it. And we're hoping to give some more information very soon about the naming convention because we would like to standardize that. The HIOS codes, according to CMS, will be different for individual small group. So we'll have to work through that with CMS. A question did come up about Magera reinsurance coverage. And I say I've got a question. Hang on one second. Let me answer this and then we'll get to that. So Magera reinsurance for small group is based on issue or renewal of that coverage in beginning January 2023. So just because a plan is still in effect in 2023, the reinsurance won't apply to it until it comes into renewal or a new issue for 2023. So, and there is a hand up. Go ahead. I can't tell who it is. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hey, Marty, it's Chris. I think it might be me.
Yeah. Thanks,
just one
Chris.
question about the individual and the small group and the naming conventions. And you said that it wouldn't be possible to include individual or small group, but if you're offering the parallel product so that they're the same, why can't you have individual and small group in the name if you want to do so, since they're going to have separate HIOS IDs? But if they're both the bronze 8,000, why can't? Because the certificates are going to be, the contracts are going to be different because the policyholders are different, individual versus employer group. So if that's a convenience factor for either, you know, the carrier or the producers, why wouldn't that be permitted?
Just writing notes to myself. Thanks, Chris. No, that's a good question. I don't know if anyone else from the Bureau wants to weigh in on that. I guess we can take it under advisement.
Sure, thank you. I mean, and like I said, we haven't decided how we want to name things, but that was something we discussed as to whether or not it might be helpful. Not just for us, but for, for sort of rapid identification. This is an individual plan or a small group plan.
Yeah. And I know we've had some discussions with the state marketplace, and they are concerned with naming conventions and, would like to have as much standardization as we can on those. So that's certainly a concern. It sounds, sounds somewhat trivial, but obviously, yeah, it's not. It's part of consumer understanding and clarity. So fair enough. We will bring that up. There was another question about one of the plans not meeting AV value, and this is similar to what we ran into before. I believe that we do not have the HSA maximum out of pocket for 2023. Am I correct? Does everyone agree on that? I think it came out in May last year. Does that sound right? So, so I think our approach last year was to structure the plans the best we could, and then understanding that there could be some last minute, unfortunately, adjustments that had to be made, and part of that's due to the federal government setting, the different requirements, and the HSA maximum out of pocket is one of those. So I'm hoping that maybe that corrects the AV value problem with, just to let people know, it was, I believe, the HSA 5200 had some difficulty meeting AV value, but right now it's set at the maximum $7,050 for the out-of-pocket. But I'm anticipating that that will change once it's announced. I believe, I don't know, IRS Treasury. Okay, so I am trying to look for hands up. If anyone sees them and I miss them, go ahead and interrupt me. So I did want to talk about the prescription drug coverage. There was a comment or a question that had come up and mentioned that small group has different type of prescription drug cost sharing coverage, and we are trying to make some consideration and not have disruption, obviously, with what people are used to in the standardized plans. Certainly carriers can put that type of structure in their 3 alternate plans that that they're able to create. But we're also interested in if there's a plan or 2 of the standardized clear choice plans, perhaps, that could more closely reflect the small group cost sharing for small group. And I think we have one, the Gold 2500 plan. We were hoping that that matched a little more closely the small group prescription coverage. That's got like a 30% up to $300 and a 50% up to $600 in the tier 3 and 4. So it's a little bit different than the other plans, and hoping that that offering would help. So I don't know if anyone had a question or had a comment about how like a different approach for the prescription drug coverage. And once again, kind of the process for this is we can discuss things. I know some things are more complicated and people would like to go back and do some research before answering. So I am hoping to take comments. Let's say we have a 2-week to comment and question answer, that type of thing, give us information, and really hoping to finalize these plans. So once we receive comments and questions in the next few weeks, then I'd like to have one more clear choice meeting to basically finalize the plans so that carriers can, start putting together their filings, because I've heard that, we're already in a tight time frame for that. So hoping by, if doable, by the end of April to have these plans finalized, and we'll issue, the formal chart and post that to the website, just to give you an idea of the timing for that. So, so like I said, if there's concerns about the prescription drug cost share, so that, groups, I know, certainly do get used to what type of coverage they have. We're interested in working that out. All right, another question. Speaking more about differences between small group and individual plans. If there's a type of coverage that a small group more typically provides than an individual. Once again, we're talking about the merge market. We understand there's differences. Certainly a small group plan could be targeted. But once again, I get back to the criteria and the regulation must offer the same plan to individual and small group. We do understand that there will be differences in the applications and contracts because, you're issuing to a different, the policyholders, the employer. So that is allowed, and that's mentioned in the regulation as well. So looking to see if there's anything else that we can quickly discuss. Did anyone have any questions that they wanted to bring up at this point?
So Marty, it's Chris, and it sort of ties into the offering the same plans to individual and small group. I mean, do they have to be exactly the same plan, or can there be minor differences like right to shop on the small group? If let's say it's the bronze 7,500, can the small group version have right to shop and the individual version not? Or does that mean that the individual version has to have right to shop as well?
My interpretation is that they have to be the same. So, if you had a plan that had right to shop in that, then it would also be available to individual policyholders. And we're hoping that, accommodating with, the targeting of the actively marketed helps that.
Yeah, the challenge is we still have to build it in case somebody wants to buy it. We can't wait and then build it. If somebody walks in and says, an individual says, I want the bronze 7,500 HSA and I want right to shop with it, it's got to already be built and priced and in the system. And that's one of the administrative challenges for all of us is even if we don't think anybody's going to buy it, we have to be prepared for that possibility. And there were provisions in the rule that said that, minor differences are allowed and don't make it not a clear choice plan. So, if we're offering the bronze 7,500 HSA in both market segments, is that sufficient to meet the requirement? And we were hoping that it would be, because obviously, now we're looking at building potentially 4 versions of that plan, because if we want to sell it, if we're going to actively market it to individuals without right to shop, we also have to the extent it's not an HSA plan, we have to be prepared to actively market it to, we have to be able to prepare to allow small groups to enroll in it too. Am I making sense, first of all, in terms of the challenge?
Yeah. And I'm wondering, you mentioned different things like a TMJ benefit. I think
Yeah,
was
that's
mentioned.
currently in small group policies, but not in individual, I believe. And it's not a clear choice benefit unless if it's not an EHB, and I have to look at that. But so those types of minor differences, if we're offering the clear choice plan in both market segments, do they have to be exactly the same, or can those minor differences be allowed and still meet the requirement that we've offered, the same plans in both individual and small group?
And Chris, is there a reason like that it makes it difficult to have them in the individual market? I mean, is it a matter of pricing or is it administrative difficulty? I guess I'm trying to understand why.
I think it's the administrative difficulty because we have to build it in our systems and we have to create the plan. We have to build it in the systems, which, as I said, if we're going to offer so currently Smart Shopper, which is our right to shop incentive, is offered on all our small group plans, not just our HSA compatible plans. So if we're offering the 7,500 bronze plan, and we want to actively market that to individuals without Smart Shopper, we have to build a small group version without Smart Shopper in case some small group wants to buy it that way. And likewise, we have to build the individual plan with Smart Shopper. Even though we're not planning to actively market it, we still have to build it so that we can accept enrollment if somebody chooses to enroll in that plan. So we're building that plan instead of building an individual plan and a small group version. We're now building it 4 times, 2 versions of individual and 2 versions of small group, if that makes sense.
And is there a reason that Smart Shopper can't be in the individual plans? I mean, is that?
Well, first of all, we can't offer it on the exchange plans, I don't believe. And I realize that falls into the difference sort of incorporated. It just hasn't been successful in small group. I think it would be even less successful in individual. Plus, there's a cost associated with it. The vendor charges us for that too. And I realize you all would probably want to take this back and discuss it, but I'm just trying to sort of lay out some of our concerns about having to, we're going to be under a tight time frame. Excuse me, things are going to be finalized very close to when we need to do this. And so, things like that really matter, whether we have to build the plan twice or 4 times and things, in terms of burden, administrative cost. It's building these plans in our systems is far more complicated than one would think.
Understood. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And it helps to discuss kind of specific examples so that we know, the types of things that you're talking about. So TMJ, the Smart Shopper.
Yeah, and Kevin has posted a comment in the chat too about the TMJ.
Okay. Yep. Thanks. Yeah. Kevin said, building on Chris's example, TMJ, if all plans are forced to include that non-EHB within the ACA plans, it adds on to the premium outside of what's covered in with APTC. So some differences there. And then we did have a question come up. I'll just go ahead and bring it up, and I don't have a specific answer yet, but just to get those thinking of it, and if someone has a the question is about tobacco rating for individual, because the small group doesn't rate by tobacco. So there is a statute that basically phases out tobacco rating, but it doesn't make it easy, because for 2023, there is an allowance for a 1.25 to 1, except that it can't be applied if an individual's participating in a tobacco cessation strategy. But then after that, for 2024, I believe it goes away. So my thought is that, the plans would be priced equally, right? And then that tobacco factor would just get applied on the tail end. So just kind of put that out there and we can formally answer. But just to let everyone know that that's another issue in this complicated approach. So I'm just looking to see if there were any other questions that I wanted to bring up that are out there.
So Marty, sorry, while you're looking, it's
Yeah,
Chris.
go ahead.
I have another sort of the rating question made me remember. Small group allows composite rating, so the rates aren't going to be, so is that going to be okay as long as they're based on the same base rate, I guess, as would apply to individual?
Yeah, and that is specifically stated in the rule. That's why I mentioned, it's a good kind of refresher to go back and look at the rule. And unfortunately, because there's two rules,
but I'm not remembering everything.
I know, yeah, and I can't remember which rule it's in, but that one does mention the composite rating is allowed, and that's why I'm hoping that we can work through the tobacco rating and allow that, but just want to confirm that works, and like I said, we'll post that in our FAQ so that we can get that clarified. I was just looking quickly, but I can't talk and look at the same time. So looking to see if there's anything else. There's still the issue of quarterly rate updates. So we're hoping that we'll get some clarification when our 1332 is approved. It was filed with the intent of allowing that. There were some questions about, once again, kind of the differences with small group. Small group tend to have, rich PPO plans, not really able to do that under individual coverage. Hopefully we can work through some of that. Like we said, once again, these plans have to be offered. We're talking about a merged market, not necessarily requiring the actively marketing. And there's a question in the chat about the individual plans and opening up enrollment. So I guess that's a good discussion. Perhaps we can add that to our list. I mean, it's not contemplated right now, but we can open that discussion up at some future time. And once again, encourage everyone, if you've got some ideas and some thoughts, it would help to have them in writing. We are recording this and people are taking notes, so we'll make every attempt to, address what gets brought up during the meeting, but it's always nice to also have it in writing. So that's available. So I guess I'm at a point where, I've tried to discuss kind of quickly some of the things that have come up and I've seen. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to unmute yourself because I can't always see hands up. And we can add. Oh, thanks, Brittany. Now we can see a little bit better who we've got. Yeah, I think we've covered what I had prepared. We did get just, I think it was Friday, formalizing the timelines, and, you know, some of the templates and different things are coming in from CMS. So we might have more guidance on those types of requirements as well. And as I mentioned, we'll put what we can in the bulletin. Another place to look for information is in the SURF filing instructions. There'll have to be some information there. And the state marketplace, of course, reaches out to the carriers themselves and will provide you with information on their requirements and their process. So unless we have any other comments or questions, like I said, I've covered some of the topics I was prepared to cover. We will try to get answers posted as soon as we can, because I did receive two emails with questions that I've been preparing some answers for. So hoping to get those out sooner than later.
You do have a hand raised.
Oh, okay.
Laura?
Hi, this is Laura Pendergast.
Hi, Laura.
I think we may have submitted this question to you, but I know in the clear choice rule, it says that like you will designate a silver plan that would have close to a 70% AV. And right now, all of the plans, well, certainly the ones from last year, I know because of the new AV calculator, are like closer or very close to 72, like they're like 71.7 or 71.8. Are you planning? I know these are your proposed plans, but are you planning on having a plan that's like a 70, or? I know it's challenging with the AV calculator.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. It is in the rule, so yeah, yep. I appreciate the reminder. So we'll try to have that as part of the final lineup. You're right. Part of it is we're structuring the plans and waiting for the AV calculator to come out. And I think we've got enough information to do that. So, yep, good comment. Thanks. We'll work on that. And Laura, you all set? I just saw your hand. Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Sorry, I was trying to figure out how to unraise my hand.
Yep.
So Marty, I know we submitted this to you. Any thoughts about the risk adjustment, how that's going to work for the transition? I know you talked about the reinsurance, but do we have a sense of how the risk adjustment will be handled, particularly for small group?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of specifics, Chris. I mean, certainly CMS runs that program, so I think we're looking for guidance from them. We did submit, I think, just a basic comment in the 1332 application to say that, you know, our intent was to merge and have a merged risk adjustment. So perhaps that's something that we can work with CMS and get more specifics.
Yeah, because Ning can jump in, but I think it was particularly on the transition. You know, how we handle the transition since small group will be renewing at different times in 2023, unlike individual.
Yeah, that's the thing. So it's really about just, you know, for the first year, we still have small groups, you know, who are still on the 2022 plan year. Are we going to have like 2 risk adjustment pools? One is for those small groups that are still on the 2022 plan years, and the other one's for the March market where everyone's on 2023 plan year.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful. Work on getting some more answers on that, especially for the transition period.
Okay, and then
But yeah,
also like, okay, yeah, and then also I guess, you know, I think by the same token, the reinsurance, you know, in that first year, you know, I think you mentioned that you know, the reinsurance becomes available only to those small groups renewing after the 20, you know, for the 23 plan year. Then what if, you know, there's small group members, you know, maybe they are renewing on 11/1 or 12/1, and then they've already had like $100,000 in claims that's over the attachment point, who are still under the 2022 plan year. Are we not going to reimburse that, you know, that member's claim until that member or in that group renews into a, you know, into the 2023 plan year?
yeah, so I think what you're saying is if yeah, the small group plan would not be covered by the reinsurance until that group plan either renewed or was newly written in 2023.
Yeah, because like, you know, I'm thinking, you know, I think at some point Magera determined that you know, everything will be run on a calendar year basis. So in that first year, you know, we're still going to have small groups that are still on the 2022 plan years. And then, you know, what if they have members develop those high cost claims that put them over the attachment point? You know, will we just not get the reimbursement for them? So that program will not be, you know, be a calendar year based program until maybe 2024. You know, just wanting to have some clarity on that.
Okay. All right. Yep, we'll work on getting the language for that.
All right, thanks. And then Marty, well, just, you know, I'm speaking because I know that on the agenda, I think there's one item is to I guess share some of the 2022 Clear Choice Plan enrollment information. I know at one point you guys collected the data from, at least from us. So wondering if you have that data available for everybody to just take a look.
Yeah, thanks. And I did notice that was on the agenda and really felt like the small group, you know, creating those plans had kind of overtaken the work on that. So we did collect some enrollment information, and I think what would be the easiest thing to do is post that on the website, so we can get that up. I mean, typically we've used our Rule 940, but we did have some different projects going on this year, and Clear Choice was one of them. And really what we were looking to do is, you know, were all of the plans equally used, and could we, you know, was there an obvious Clear Choice plan to eliminate? And when we looked at it, there were 2 HSA plans that were not being used in the individual market that much. So my first thought was that perhaps we would suggest combining those 2 HSAs into one. I think it was like 3,500 and the 4,500. But then when we started to discuss the small group plans that would be needed, to take those out of the lineup, I think would limit, you know, what the small group might appreciate and use. So I think we're really looking into another year of checking to make sure, you know, that the lineup is appropriate, and, you know, can we eliminate, or what do we need to add? So that was really the quick result of looking at the enrollment. And I have to say that, you know, the rest of the plans looked as though they were pretty well populated. but we can share those specifics with you. And yeah, sorry to get your hopes up because that was on the agenda. I don't have it, right handy to pull up right now. So I'll get that posted. And then if we have some discussion, that we want to talk about enrollment, we can at the next meeting. And I don't know, were there any other specific concerns about enrollment or anything that we could share? Okay, so I've got a note to myself to share what we can, on the website about the enrollment results a little bit earlier than what we had. Okay, well, thanks everyone for listening in and suggestions and comments. We still have our work cut out for us. So as I mentioned, if you've got some comments, I know I have received from a few and good technical questions, but we'll have to work on getting the answers firmed up and get those posted. And we'll certainly keep everyone. Oh, go ahead, Laura.
Sorry, I know it takes a while to see the little hand.
Yeah.
Just one other question I thought of as we were talking about these plans here and the other questions coming up regarding small group. I think last year you had like 2 plans that were sort of designated as off exchange only, and I think they were those HSAs. With the merging market, are there going to be plans that will be designated off exchange only this year, or are all of these plans going to be potentially on exchange? Because we have a lot more plans now, obviously. It seems like that would be a lot to be putting on the exchange, given that Clear Choice is supposed to be making things clearer, I guess, for the at least.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you. And yeah, I think that did come in on the list of questions. So I was kind of working through it. I believe that would still be the intent, is for those to be off exchange. I think we're interested in keeping the silver AV value up, certainly to keep our premium tax credits maximized. And so, yeah, I'll confirm that with our answers.
Okay, thanks.
But yep, good to know what issues have come up, so that everyone can kind of think about those as well, and any other concerns. All right, I don't see any other questions. We've certainly had a lot to talk about and think about. And like I said, there's still much going on. We did get the announcement of our federal pass-through funds. I don't know if everyone's had a chance or been alerted to that. So always good to get information and keep moving things along. So I think we're pleased with the pass-through fund award, and that was for 2022 and included the ARPA amount. So we'll keep an eye on that in our reinsurance program. So that's all I can think of. Everyone, really appreciate your time and your comments, your input, and we'll get, like I said, the information to you as soon as we can, and schedule one more, and hopefully we can finalize and get things going so you can prepare your filings. All righty. Thank you, everyone.